President Assad was not behind a chemical weapon attack last month. The rebels carried it out as a provocation. Well, that's what a letter sent to Barack Obama from former U.S. intelligence and military officials says, citing their own security sources. It was signed by 12 ex-officials. Former U.S. Army Judge Advocate Todd is one of them and joins me live right now. Now, your letter alleges that this chemical attack was carried out by the Syrian opposition, and you warn against the US taking military action. Now, Bush ignored similar advice you gave him prior to the Iraq war. Do you think you're being listened to now, bearing in mind the fact that any military action seems to be stalling?
Well, I think it's so self-evident that this is going to be disastrous to launch a military attack that I don't know that anyone needs to listen to us. I think it's readily apparent to so many other people. The British Parliament saw that, and we may be being offered a face-saving means to extricate ourselves from what the corner we put ourselves into with the latest offer, of the Russians to help bring about a meeting and getting these chemical weapons under the control of international authorities. I don't know that our statement really said that we know exactly what happened, but rather calling into question the supposed intelligence that's claiming that Assad was behind all this.
But you do have other intelligence, don't you? You are suggesting in the letter that there is intelligence saying that it was indeed not the Assad government. But why should your intelligence or your sources be more credible than Obama's?
Well, again, if you look at what President Obama has been saying, even they seem to waffle a little bit on how irrefutable this evidence is. And the rush to war, but for the British Parliament, I think we probably would have been at war a week ago, Saturday, when the UN inspectors had left Syria. Obviously, the British Parliament slowed this process down. But there's reports out there, and people that I am associated with, share information, not classified, but just readily available open source information, that this may have been an accident by the Free Syrian Army, as one matter of conjecture, and supposedly there are some people within that group who have admitted that. So again, I don't think the intelligence is clear, and to go launch a war on the pretext of humanitarianism that's going to result in far more casualties than the alleged 1,400, and I don't know that that's even well established, I think that can well be considered a act of aggression, crime of aggression, as is phrased.
Why would it be a realistic option? Why would it be a realistic option to suggest that the rebels would carry out such an attack? What would they achieve by doing so?
Well, I think there's so many. First of all, again, some information indicates it might have been just plain accident. Allegedly, a rebel claims that they weren't well trained and these chemicals were provided by Saudi Arabia. So again, that would be one possibility. Otherwise, there's so many factions in the Syrian conflict that we don't know without good intelligence, and I mean genuinely good intelligence, not mere conjecture. Maybe one faction saw this as an opportunity. We did have the red line, the so-called red line, and so we announced to the world that if this happens, the United States, with all of its military power, is going to intervene on the side of the rebels. So certainly there is a motive and perhaps an opportunity for a faction to exploit that opportunity.
And just briefly, you warned of retaliatory attacks if the US would go ahead with military action. What sort of threats are you talking about there?
Well, Chalmers Johnson wrote a fantastic book, Blowback, way back in 1998 or so, talking about the threat that unlimited intervention in other nations' affairs might trigger blowback, retaliation. And in fact, as a Guantanamo defense attorney, I represented a couple clients, and one of whom had created a video pointing out that attacks by al-Qaeda were in fact retaliation for what they saw as hostile acts by the United States toward people in the Mideast. I think it's incredible to believe that other people would not consider retaliation against the United States when the United States has made no secret that it will consider retaliation. So I think it's pretty self-evident that there'd be some sort of retaliation once we enter that civil war on one side and maybe on one side of one faction. So, other factions may too come, attempt to retaliate against us. It's a witch's brew that we're trying to get ourselves into. And, we used to recognize in the Army that war was so unpredictable and expensive, you tried to avoid it. And it seems like with Dick Cheney back in 2001, we flipped that on its head.
Todd Pierce, thank you very much
to where
indeed
it's
for your
become
thoughts.
the first choice.
Thank you very much indeed for your thoughts on this. Great to have you live here on RT. Former US Army Judge Advocate joining us live here. Thank you very much.